The Cafe Terrace and its goddesses, or Megami no Cafe Terrace in Japanese, is an anime series about the unusual story of an orphaned teenager with blue hair, Hayato Kasakube, who studies in Tokyo and returns home to Miura, Kanagawa when his grandmother, who was running a cafe called Cafe Terrace Familia, dies. He enters the cafe thinking he is alone and hears a girl's voice. He wonders if the place is haunted. He turns around and sees a cute girl who screams. Hayato runs out of the room and bumps into another girl. He has no idea what's going on and who the strange girls are. He runs again and is shocked when he sees more girls in the house that was supposed to be empty. Mistaking him for a burglar, one of the girls hits Hayato sharply on the neck and others help her tie him up. They realize he's not a thief but don't let him go because he has seen too much and is already demanding an explanation for what were they doing in his house and how they know his grandma. One of the girls, whose name is Akin, tells him that they were his grandma Sakiko's family. She had taken them and treated them like her own. Another free him first. They believe him and release him, but he decides to immediately evict them. Hayato only wants to tear the house and cafe down, build a parking lot there instead, and make a lot of money from the tourists in the summer. He doesn't care about his grandma's legacy. The girls, whose names are Oka, Ami, Akin, Ryo, and Shiragiko, decide to go to the beach in the evening. Furious that they now have no place to live, they decide to teach Hayato a lesson by seducing and then blackmailing him. All alone, Hayato wonders how to get rid of the girls and remembers with a pang of regret how he had yelled at his grandma before leaving for high school. His thoughts are broken at the sight of Oka dressed as a maid coming towards him. She invites Hayato to join them for dinner and appears nervous and shy. In reality, she is just following Ryo's plan to seduce him. Hayato offers to pay Oka for cooking dinner and she agrees, but she had no clue how to make fried chicken and burn it to a crisp. When Hayato tries to explain some math to her, she is clueless again. Next, Ami tries to seduce Hayato and tells him to go jogging with her at night, but Hayato refuses. The girls have dinner together and laugh as Otto at alone. Ryo tells him the bathroom is ready and he goes there, recalling that he had told his grandma that he'd wanted to study and get rich. Hayato then imagines that the girls are plotting against him. He sees the cafe door open and finds Akin smoking. It enrages him, but she replies that when she writes songs for her band, needed a quiet place. Hayato returns to his room, unaware of the trap that the girls have set for him. The girls deliberately intoxicate Shiragiko so that she can seduce Hayato in his room while Ryo wants to film it and blackmail him, but Ami, who is the girl's self-appointed bodyguard, bars in and hits Hayato hard in a fake attempt to protect Shiragiko from him. Later on, Hayato is visited by some people who will demolish his late grandmother's cafe and one of them breaks Familia's sign. This gives Hayato a sudden change of heart and regret. He decides to keep the sign as a souvenir of Sakiko, who had raised him after his parents died. Sensing his feelings, Oka makes Hayato a plate of special rice from his grandma's recipe and it brings Hayato to tears of sadness and longing for her. He asks Oka how Sakiko had died and learns that she's passed away laughing, which gives him some relief. Later on, Hayato checks Familia's ledger and realizes that the cafe is bankrupt from upkeeping the girls and announces that he will now run it himself as long as the girls live with him and continue working for the cafe. He resolves to carry on his grandma's legacy by enlisting 5 girls as goddesses to ensure the protection of a cafe and home. Hayato's first order of duty is to divide household chores among the girls but this shocks them and they start making excuses not to. Ami reveals that his grandma had done everything herself, including cooking and laundry. This makes Hayato angry and he declares that they had killed his grandma with their laziness. He managed to convince them to start cleaning the place. When Hayato sees some of their clothes while doing laundry, the girls send him to clean Familia as punishment. He sees a coffee machine in the cafe and remembers teasing his grandma about the old machine, but she would say that it is the best and that she loved it. Hayato wants to clean it, but Shiragiko stops him because it was very precious to his grandma and he'd have to be careful. She invites him to have dinner with them like a family under the cherry trees. Later on, Hayato prepares for reopening day of Familia and wants to practice making coffee the way he had seen his grandma do it, but his coffee tastes awful and is helped by the antisocial girl, Akin, who just so happens to make excellent coffee, and he asks her to teach him. His woes don't, and because he continues to have awkward encounters with the 5 girls as they share the same bathroom and gets repeatedly beaten up by the Emi for it. Hayato eventually takes Ryo with him to advertise Familia's reopening and gets scolded by her for sulking and driving people away. After that, she finds out a shrine that her fortune entails that she will find love with a co-worker. Some days later, they all have a meeting and Hayato gives the girls their salaries, which shocks them. He explains that he had made money from the stock market. Later that night, he finds his cell phone and laptop smashed. Emi had broken them while trying to carry tea and weights at the same time. Hayato loses temper at Emi, and things get worse when Shiragiko reveals that the company in which Hayato had invested his money has gone bankrupt. Hayato is at his wits' ends, learning that he has lost all his money and cannot even sell his remaining stocks without his computer. He wants to strangle Emi. Hayato makes the decision to open the cafe and make the girls work double shifts now. Eventually, the cafe is full of happy customers on its first day. But an old man called Fuwa approaches Hayato and harasses him to return the loan Sakiko had taken from him. He insults her and Shiragiko, and Hayato throws him out of the cafe with the support of its customers. On the other hand, it is revealed that Hayato and Shiragiko were childhood friends 15 years ago, and that he hasn't changed since then. To revive Familia's flailing customer base, Hayato decides to open a stall at the Cherry Blossom Festival to sell cookies from a recipe that Akin and Shikiko had developed. They open the stall, but Oka is arrested by Fuwa's grandson and his thugs. Familia's stall is vandalized overnight. Hayato then repurposes Sakiko's old food cart into a mobile cafe stall, which is a success because of Ryo's social media work. However, the same men continue harassing them and get beaten up by Emi. Hayato soon notices that Ryo is working too hard between college and Familia. She reveals that she is grateful for how Shikiko helped her and wants to make Familia successful. Hayato also learns that Akin plays in a band on her days off but won't let the girls attend her concerts. He ends up at her secret underground concert and finds her to be a talented singer. Akin is embarrassed and makes Hayato promise to keep her singing a secret, after which he buys her CD. The next week, the girls discuss living together with a man but conclude that Hayato will not make them uncomfortable and wonder what he plans to do when the year is over. Suddenly, Akin reveals that she wouldn't mind marrying Hayato, which shocks the girls. But things don't go as smoothly as the girls had thought, and they start to notice how they all interact. Ryo notices that Hayato smiles whenever Shiragiko praises him, and Shiragiko feels jealous when Hayato pats Ryo's head. She's also angry when he plans to change Sakiko's old menu, a decision that must be decided in a sandwich taste test, which involves his grandmother's original sandwich against Ryo's recipe. Hayato also senses that the menu isn't the real aim here, and refuses to try either sandwich. Somehow, Emi breaks Hayato's new laptop again, and Oka breaks his phone. Akin gets a call from her mother, and Hayato figures out that she is planning to leave Familia. He asks her out on a secret date, but it is only so that he can get her to share a problem with him. Akin tells Hayato that her family owns a trading company of which she is now the sole heir after her father's death, and her mother has chosen a fiancé for her and is pressuring her to get married. Hayato understands as Akin doesn't want to go, and other girls ask Hayato to help her. They meet Akin's mother, and the way things turn out, Akin gets permission to live as she pleases, which makes the girls happy. But Akin's mother embarrasses her when she says if she wants to marry Hayato, she will need to defeat other girls first. Akin thanks Hayato by hugging him and promising to make his coffee for the rest of his life. She also finally reveals that she has a crush on him. As the story progresses, Hayato tells the girls of his desire to open a Familia beach hut and that they will have to give up their summer breaks to work to make a profit because the hut will cost 4 months worth of profits from the cafe to build. They agree and immediately discuss whether to wear for the beach hut, and Hayato decides on short and vests. Meanwhile, Akin has rejoined her band and changes its name like Hayato had suggested. which makes the other girls worry she has become a serious rival for Hayato's affections. On the opening day, Riho is angry to see her talking with Hayato instead of working and faints from overworking in the heat. After she recovers, Riho is still unable to control her feelings and shouts angrily at Hayato when some girls flirt with him. On the other hand, he learns that his childhood friend has a sure shot at becoming a chef after college and wonders why she works at his coffee shop. Once again, Fuwa's grandson and his goons come across the hut and trouble Riho, which prompts Hayato to send Ami to scare them away. Akane tells Hayato her next song is about first love, but before he gets the obvious hint, he is pulled by Ami into the sea as a prank. Riho overworks again and Hayato warns her to be mindful of her health. In a surprising twist, a news reporter reveals that Riho used to be a child actress, and strangely, this upsets her because of the memory of her mother overworking her, which led to her father, who was worried about her health, divorcing her mother. Riho never recovered from the divorce, which is why her past as an actress troubled her. Hayato understands and assures Riho that Familia's success is not worth risking her health for. She agrees to relax more and ends up weeping in his arms. The story changes tracks when Oka's twin sister, Kika, tracks her whereabouts to Familia. She is angry to learn that her twin is only a part-timer in the weirdest living arrangement. Kika insults the girls, Hayato and Familia, for being beneath the revered Makuzawa family, which makes Oka slap her and Kika leaves. Oka decides to tell the others that her generation of her family members had graduated from Tokyo University, but she had been unable to deal with the pressure from their parents and had left to study fashion. Kika continues to keep an eye on Oka, and Hayato gives her the day off to talk it out with her twin. Oka realizes Kika misses her and they make up. Kika tells Oka that she is impressed that Hayato was the only person who had not mistaken her for Oka. Hayato later reveals that he had noticed Kika is left-handed unlike Oka and had shouted at Ami, which Oka would never do, and this flusters Oka. On the other hand, Akane surprises Hayato by asking him about his future romantic plans, but he tells her that he won't consider anything until he decides Familia's future, which leads her to understand that it isn't the right time for Hayato to make a decision about her love confession. Unknown to them, the conversation is overheard by Shuragiko. Akane confides in Riho that she had confessed her feeling to Hayato at the beach, so if she loves Hayato as well as she needs to let him know soon. This makes Riho finally confess to Hayato, but she follows it by claiming to be joking, but it makes Hayato uncomfortable, and he also tells her that he has decided not to think about romance until Familia's future is decided. Riho accepts this, but loses her temper the next day when Akane openly flirts with Hayato. The rivalry is noticed by customers, which makes Ami intervene to stop their fighting. Akane admits to provoking Riho on purpose so she could at least be honest about her feelings for Hayato, because she always keeps her feelings to herself. Riho agrees and apologizes for losing her temper, and she and Akane promise to behave better. However, Hayato sees their confrontation and runs off confused and afraid, thinking that he had done something wrong. Moving on, Hayato decides that it's time to create another new menu item, but Akane and Riho notice that he doesn't trust either of them. Shuragiko is annoyed when Hayato casually mentions her moving out soon to get a real job instead of being a part-timer at Familia. So she rashly confesses her feelings to him as well. But it turns out that she was only high on kitchen disinfectant, which had made her reveal her feelings before passing out. Hayato hears a rumor about Sakiko and insists on finding out what she was doing in his grandmother's room later at night. She has a flashback of Sakiko, who was once a 3-Michelin star chef in Spain and had mentored her father, which is the real story of how Shuragiko and Hayato had first met as children. Sakiko had resolved never to let her grandson know that she had to quit being a chef only to raise him. But when Hayato finally gets to know this, he blames himself for ruining Sakiko's life. Shuragiko assures him that his grandmother had never once regretted choosing to raise him, over her career, which makes Hayato decide that he will not let Familia down. The other girls have all been eavesdropping on the secret meeting and cry as they too promise give it their all to revive Familia. Finally, the story skips to an old Hayato still working at Familia, but he now has a teeny daughter with blue hair just like his beside him. What remains a mystery is which one of the 5 girls he had ended up marrying, if at all. The series ends in the present with Hayato and the girls at a picnic when a drunken Shuragiko openly confesses that she is in love with him, which shocks everyone, and especially Akane and Riho, who are left with a new rival for Hayato's heart. Well, that's all guys. Let me know in the comments who you think Hayato ended up marrying, and I'll catch you here again with another anime recap soon.